Happy Friday, second period. We are going to work on session 11. It is another mini lesson. It is the intersection of group identities with individual traits. So we are in week 6, day 5. It is Friday, May 8th. I'm wondering if some of you have felt a bit uneasy over the last week or so. We've been talking about groups. Maybe as you were exploring some of the more complex issues connected to themes in your books yesterday, you were feeling hesitant or unsure. It may have felt as if you had come into territory that felt highly charged or even tricky to talk about. Readers, we can't ignore those hesitations, those yes, but thoughts. Let me tell you about the things that made me uneasy about our conversations over the last few days. Will you tell me if you felt a bit uneasy too? Whenever we talked about groups of people, girls, boys, teachers, immigrants, every time we did that, I found myself thinking, but girls, boys, teachers, immigrants, whomever's aren't always like that. So think about that if you had some of the same thoughts. Readers, today I want to remind you of something, not to teach you, but to remind you. This is something you and I know well, but it's something we can easily forget. Today I want to remind you that characters are complicated. They aren't just one way. Characters are complicated. They are not just one way. What a profound idea, right? This is a huge implication for everything that we have been studying. My mind is exploding, isn't yours? Wow, I'm blown away by some of your thinking and about how we were thinking with groups of people. It's easy to stereotype even without meaning to. We start to assume everyone from a certain group is a certain way, but characters are complicated. People within a group are not all one way. Readers, remember when we talked about how reading literature can help us come up with do's and don'ts for relationships? To work toward more positive relationships, we could begin to think about do's and don'ts for thinking and talking about people as members of groups. Can you think of something we could put on our list? Let's jot about that to get ideas flowing. Start by writing. When talking or thinking about a group, be careful not to. Readers, I know we want to resolve from today forward to remember the advice we just wrote about people as members of groups, but it's not always easy to do. It might sound easy to say, I'm going to be cautious about assuming that just because someone belongs to a group, that person thinks and feels like others in that group. But it's actually intellectually challenging to be aware of someone's membership in a group. And at the same time, hold in your mind that that person is an individual responding in ways that are idiosyncratic. If you try patting your stomach and rubbing your head at once, you'll find that it's hard to do. And in a much deeper way, it is not easy to hold in your mind these two almost conflicting ideas. So today I want to teach you that when considering issues that affect groups, readers can't forget that individuals are unique, complicated people. When thinking about a character, readers consider the challenges that characters face because of the groups they are in, and they also think about the unique ways the characters respond to those challenges. Readers aim to merge ideas about group issues and individual responses to push toward life lessons. I'm going to reread a part of the story to get it in our minds again. Listen and think about Francisco's membership in a group. For now, let's say in the group of immigrants who are new to English, you'll be thinking about the challenges or issues the group sends his way. I preferred to hang around Arthur, one of the boys who knew a little Spanish. During recess, he and I played on the swings, and I pretended to be a Mexican movie star like Jorge Negrete or Pedro Infante. Riding a horse and singing the corridors we often heard on the car radio. I sang them to Arthur as we swung back and forth, going as high as we could. But when I spoke to Arthur in Spanish, Miss Scalapino heard me. She said, no, with body and soul. Her head turned left and right 100 times a second, and her index finger moved from side to side as fast as a windshield wiper on a rainy day. English, English, she repeated. Arthur avoided me whenever she was around. So remember our point today. Francisco is complicated. Yes, he is a learner of English. Yes, he doesn't understand the teacher. In those ways, he's a lot like other English language learners. But listen again, and in this time, think about the specific, unique things you know of Francisco as a person, and think about how those things Those traits and motivations make his way of reacting to his challenges a bit special. Be thinking like this. Many people, in this instance, many immigrants might, but the character in this instance, Francisco, responds this way because. I want to give you a tip. When you're looking for details, try to find many kinds of details. A character's actions, his dialogue, his inner thinking are all windows into who he is. When you talk now, be sure to go back and find those details. He's pretending to be a movie star. She picked up where I left off. Be sad and depressed because they couldn't understand the teacher, but Francisco uses his imagination and pretends he's a movie star. Keep going and think about what the text says. He makes up his own stories in Spanish rather than just sitting there. So, what do you make of that? Is he still having a hard time in school? I bet you'll find that he isn't. It isn't a black and white thing, it's complicated. We have a richer portrait of Francisco. Oops. We have a richer portrait of Francisco now. Yes, he is an English language learner, and yes, he is an immigrant, and yes, he doesn't understand things in English, which must be hard for him. We know it's hard because he has all those headaches, but you have all been thinking about the fact that Francisco's response to this hard stuff isn't shaped only because of his group membership or because his group's access to power or lack thereof. It's also shaped by his traits. One of his traits is that he's imaginative. He's able to escape the classroom in his mind. He's flying on a horse, a Mexican movie star. Knowing that, you will think back to what we said yesterday about how stories teach life lessons. What might this story be teaching? Today we had a breakthrough. I heard many of you say things like, even though it's hard to be in a place where he's new to the language, Francisco is using his imagination to help him get through. Whenever you're doing this kind of thinking about big issues, you're going to want to remember to think about both the individual and the group they're a part of. I'm adding this to our anchor chart. So study individuals' responses to group-related issues and ask, what can I learn from this? So today's task, you are going to read chapters 25 and 26 from The Serpent King. As you read, make sure you're continuing your thinking about groups and their impacts on individuals. And remember that group members don't act all alike. There's no written assignment today, so enjoy your weekend. Have a great Friday, and I hope you can get outside. See ya. Mom.